Let us pray. Father, I want to thank you for this time, your presence. Thank you for the previous teachings. Thank you for the one we want to have now. We ask that you teach us a word and let our word make us better people in you. Bless us also. In Jesus' mighty name, I pray. Amen. Yeah, welcome to today's teaching. My name is Dayo-Ojo. Today, I want to continue our series on redefining prosperity the Bible way. We're going to be taking a look at the church without lack. In our last teaching, we dealt with how God prosper a man, a Christian, or how people are raised in the kingdom of our Lord Jesus Christ. And we said that one thing that is sure for every Christian is the provision of basic needs, necessities of every Christian. And that beyond that, Jesus might not be held responsible. And that taking people beyond that will be based on the capacity that were built, the economy of our nation, and then possibly sometimes if we're one of the kingdom functionaries. In case you want to look at that, you can look at our last teaching on Redefining Prosperity the Bible Way, part 9. We're going to put it in the link so that you can see that. So today, we're going to be looking at something we said that we concluded in that teaching. That if your economy is bad, like we have in African nations, and you have done your bit, you have developed capacity, you have gone to university or college as the case may be, or maybe you have learned a trade, or you have done your bit, and things are not working for you. What is the plan of God for such Christians, like we say in Africa? If God is true, why are people in Africa still suffering? Why there are no food for people to eat? Why is it difficult for people to send their children to school? Why is it so difficult for people to get access to basic medical facilities? So we're going to be looking at that now. Let's start by saying that one thing that Jesus is trying to do in this generation or in this kingdom, in this dispensation, is to build his church. We saw that in that teaching too, or let's quickly read that in book of Matthew chapter 16. Matthew 16 from 17. And Jesus answered and said unto him, Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood are not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. And I say also unto thee, that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail over it. Now, we said that what God is doing now is different from what he did in the days of Old Testament, where he wanted to make Israel great, and he told Abraham that he was going to make him great and make the nation great, meaning that he was building people and building nation. But where we are right now, God is saying that his concern is the church, that the church must not go down, the gate of hell will not prevail, and that he is the head of the church, where his body. So his concern now is the body, not particularly a person. So when God is dealing with a person, it's because of the body. And we also said that when God said in the book of Isaiah, I think chapter 3, that he sent his word to Jacob, he landed on Israel. The aim of sending that thing, that blessing to Jacob was because of Israel, not because of Jacob, even though it had to pass through Jacob. So what God is doing now, what Jesus is doing, is to build his church. Of course, in the course of building a church, it will need individuals. So in the course of building a church, it might be just 1, 2, 3 people that will raise to make things work. That's why we have to understand this. It might not need to build everybody to be able to build a church. It might just build a few people, and the church will be built. The church will be built. When God says he's going to build in a church, he's going to just look for functionaries, not all the people. It is through all the people now that will be able to take care of every other person. Just like the brain is the one supplying so many things, nerves, our nerve system is going through the brain to every part of the body. So that's the way it works. Now, how does God take care of his church now, especially in a situation where the economy of that nation is not good, and the people are in abject poverty like we see in African nations. I said the first thing that God is expecting from us is to teach the people sound doctrine how to make the ends meet for themselves, doctrine how to fend for themselves, doctrine that is, the Bible says that if man will not work, he will not eat. There's nowhere we are taught in the Bible that when we want to meet our daily need, we should go and be praying. There is nowhere we're taught that we should go and be going to the mountain and not walk and expect God to drop money from heaven. So we should also stop teaching people that when you give to God, that's when you're going to become rich. All those things are not biblical. We have said that God is not doing business with man. I don't want to go into that detail now because of time. But all we're saying is that the Bible said in Ephesians 4:28, it said, if anyone is stealing, let him not steal again. Let him go and work with his hands. And he can have something for himself and give to others. Whoever will not work will not eat. It's not that whoever will not go and meet man of God will not eat. It's not that whoever will not go to mountain to pray will not eat. Whoever will not work will not eat. Though we might need prayer to make sure that nothing is hindering what we're doing. There's no doubt about that. So that's the first thing we must learn, that the people must be taught in the nations how to make ends meet. Not what we're teaching them in Africa, telling them to sow. There's one, he said this sowing is the most annoying part. That for you to get something for your father, you must dash him money first. That must be a very wicked father. That my father and I, if he were to be alive and I needed something for him, I must first of all take money to him first before he can give me that thing. Only a wicked father does that. All my father will expect me to do is to ask him. At best, he will want me to be a good child to him. After being a good child, I will make my request. So if I'm a good child to my father, all I need to do is to go to him and say, Father, I need this thing. I don't need to dash him money. Because invariably, anytime he needs money, I give to him without even asking me. I will have been doing that. So when I need something too, he'll give me without him asking me for anything. So the second thing is the one we want to major on now. How does God want us to do in a nation that is not working like we have in our nations in Africa? How do we make sure that everybody has access to basic needs of life, necessities? Like for instance, they can eat their at least 2 or 3 square meals. They can have cloth to cover their nakedness. They can have money to pay their medical bills, or have places they go for medical, whatever, access to medical facilities. And they can send their children to school. Those basic needs, God has made available. We're going to look at it. Now let's see 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 12 to 15. For if there be first a willing mind, it is accepted according to that a man had, and not according to that he had not. For I mean not that other men be eased and ye burden. Note that if there's a willing heart, readiness to give to others, he said, no problem, give. He said, but I'm not saying you should give to the extent that you begin to have problem yourself and give beyond what your capacity can afford, to the extent that you become need again. He said, no, I'm not saying you should do that. Now let's leave verse 14. But by an equality, note that is so important. By an equality, why do we give? For the purpose of equality. That now, at this time, your abundance may be a supply for their want, and the abundance also may be a supply for your want, and there may be equality. He said, as it is written, note this, he that had gathered much had nothing over, and he that gathered a little had no lack. What does that mean? For instance, let's say you go to the farm to gather oranges, and that everybody for the day will need 10 oranges. And 2 of you went to the farm to get oranges, and one has gathered maybe 7. Another man has gathered maybe 15. And we know that all you will need for the day will be 10. What God is saying, he said, for the purpose of equality, that everybody will get what he needed. He said, you that you have 15, you give to that man that had 10. That had 7, so that you can become 10. That means you have to give him 3 out of your 15, so that we have 10. Your own will now become 12. So that at the end of the day, he that gathers 7 is not lacking anything. He that gathers 15 too is not lacking anything. So your excess now is supplying his want. That's what the Bible says. Let me read it again to you. It said, and it is written, he had gathered much, had nothing over, And he that gathered little had no lack. That's the essence of our giving, so that there will be equality. Who has excess will give to the one who is lacking. Let's see another passage again in the book of Luke chapter 3, 10 and 11. And the people asked him, saying, What shall we do then? He answered and said unto them, He that had 2 coats, let him impart to him that had none, and he that had meat, let him do otherwise. So they were asking John, what should they do? You know, in a way, this kingdom almost started with, they started preaching of kingdom with a John. So John was saying, when people came to him, say, what should they do? When he was stating them, repent, and for the kingdom of God is at hand. And they asked him question, what should they do? He said, he that has 2, let it give to he that has none. That means that if somebody has nothing at all, and you have 2, give him 1 now, so there will be 1-1. Same thing we read in that one, equality, so that nobody will lack anything. Let's see another passage again, James 2, 15 and 16. If a brother or sister be naked and destitute of daily food, and one of you say unto them, Depart in peace, be ye warmed and filled. Notwithstanding, ye give them not those things which are needful to their body. What doth it profit? So it's still saying the same thing. Now, if you read again Isaiah 58 from verse 1 to 7, you see that God was saying the same thing in that place. That once you have excess, you should be ready to give to those who are lacking in some things. Now let's now go to the practical demonstration of that as it's taught in New Testament. Look at 4, 32 to 35. And the multitude of them that believed were of one heart and one soul. Neither said any of them that aught of the things which he possessed was his own. That's very important. He said none of them said what he had belonged to him, but they had all things in common. Let me explain this before I proceed. He said, when the disciples began that time and they have issue with needs, and some people couldn't afford their daily bread, and some people couldn't clothe themselves, and some people didn't have a place to put their head. He said they had need. What did they do? Note, they did not go praying like we do today. 2, they did not go do anointing service and special program to raise money. They didn't do that. They didn't start doing so many things, sowing seed like we teach people today. What did they do? He said, number 1, let's read it again, verse 32. And the multitude of them that believe were one heart and one accord. First thing they do is to make sure that they were one. And they say, neither said they any of them that aught of the things which he possessed was his own. They didn't say what they had belonged to them. Now, what does it mean? You know, when we were doing our teaching on tithe, we said that God has redeemed us. He has bought us with his blood. Jesus Christ bought us with his blood. Having bought us with his blood, we now belong to him. Everything we possess now as Christians belong to God 100%. So what this place is saying is that nobody laid hold to what he had that belonged to him. They see it as it belonged to the kingdom. Like I said earlier, God is building the kingdom. Whatever has given to you is a kingdom resources that can be used for kingdom needs. So when you have anything as a Christian, it belongs to God. You are just holding it in trust for God. So the disciple of early church understood that nobody laid claim to what belonged to him, that this is my own. That's to say, if you have 2 cars, you didn't see the 2 cars as your own. You saw it as a car of the church. That's to say, when you have $50,000 in your account, you didn't see that $50,000 as your own. You saw it as the money of the church. That's to say, when you had 2 houses, you didn't see those 2 houses as your own. You saw it as the houses of the church. So he said, let's read it again. So it's so important we read it. He said, and the multitude of them that believe were one heart and one soul. Neither said any of them that aught of the things which he possessed was his own, but they had all things in common. It belonged to everybody. Let's proceed. And with great power gave the apostles witness of the resurrection of the Lord Jesus, and gave grace was upon them all. I'm still going to explain this later. And I said, because they were doing the right thing, they followed what Jesus taught them, then the power of God was in their midst. Because they didn't see anything that belonged to them as their property, they saw it as God's property for the purpose of the kingdom. God was in their midst working miracles. Let's see 34. Neither was there any among them that lacked. You seen that? Why did they not lack? Let's see it. For as many as were possessors of lands or houses sold them and bought the price of the things that were sold. Oh God, this is so important. He said, why were they not lacking? For people to be selling their properties means people were lacking. Some people couldn't feed. Some people couldn't clothe themselves. Some people couldn't get a place to put their head. Some people possibly couldn't send their children to school. But how did they overcome that? He said some people sold their property to meet the need of others. Why? Because their property didn't belong to them, it belonged to God. Since it belongs to God, it means that it belongs to everybody. And if something belongs to everybody, why should you be having essay where somebody is lacking nothing? Equality. Now, don't forget their place of equality example I did. I say it's as if somebody, you have 10 oranges. I mean, two people went for oranges. One gathered 15, one gathered 7. The one of 15 will give 3 to the one of 7 to have 10, so that they have 10, 12. Since 10 is the minimum that everybody required. So what they were doing here was that they were practicing equality. Now, for instance, I said people who had houses went and sold their house. That's to say, for you to have a house, that means you have more than enough. That's the meaning. If what God has promised us, like I keep teaching, like we are saying that they have taught you otherwise, is that you should have your basic need. That's the concern of God. Every other thing is just addition. Now, for you to now have a house, that means you have had your basic need. You have now saved to the extent you now have 2 houses. Though the Bible didn't put it, but we know that house is a necessity. So for people selling their houses, that means they must have had 2 houses. For you to have 2 houses, it means you have had more than enough. So why should you have excess and others don't have? So they understood this thing that we're saying now. They sold one and made the money available for those who don't have money to feed their children. That you shouldn't be having 2 houses. That's one line doing nothing. Maybe you're just getting money from it. Why people can't even feed their children? Or why people can't send their children to school? Why people can't clothe themselves? Now, for somebody who has a land too, for you to go and buy a land, that means you have fed yourself. That means you have clothed yourself. That means you have somewhere you are staying. So they saw that as an excess that should be given out to somebody who is lacking. So those are where they were doing. They were selling those things that looked as excess so that they can maintain the law of equality that we read earlier in the book of 2 Corinthians. So a church is not supposed to be having people having excess while some people don't have basic necessities. Let's read that passage again. Neither was there any among them that lacked. For as many as possessors of land or houses sold them. You have seen that. That is, they have excess, they have houses and land. And bought the prices of those things that were sold. They brought the prices. Let's read for 35. And laid them down at the apostles' feet. They gave it to apostles. Why? The apostles are the one that have record of people who had needs. Don't forget in church, if people have needs, the likelihood is that the first person they will go to will be the person in charge, the apostles, the pastors, the representative of the church, the leadership. That's the first place of call. So they're the one that have the correct record of people who lacked. So they took it to them to distribute to people who lacked. Let's continue. It says, and distribution was made unto every man according to as he had need. Now, distribution was given to people according to need. Note that. We did in that teaching of part 8 too, that God is responsible for our need, not want. So when they were making those distribution, they were giving it for people who have needs, not people who have wants. That's to say, if you go to them and you say, oh, I've not eaten, they'll give you money that is enough for you to eat. But you can't go to them and say, for instance, if money you need for eating, let's say it's $30, they will not give you $40. What you need is $30 to feed. That's what they will give to you. They will not, if you now give to them, if you now go to them and said, you want to buy, for instance, ice cream. Ice cream is not a necessity. They won't give you money for that. Or for instance, go to them, you said, you don't have clothes, you want to buy clothes. They will give you money to buy clothes. They will not give you money to go and buy, because body is not meant to wear designers. It's for class. Designers is for class. So they give you what is needed, basic necessities. That's what God is responsible to for us. God is committed to meeting our basic needs, not wants. Don't forget that passage we always quote in Philippians chapter 4, verse 19. It says, my God will supply all your needs, not wants. So what they were meeting in the people now were the needs, not their want. That's to say, as long as the need of everybody is met, nobody will sell his property again. That's to say, as long as the needs of everybody is met, nobody will bring his money again. For instance, in that one of oranges I told you, the one of 15 gave 3 to the one of 7 to have 10. So the 10 is the basic need. That's what he gave to the person. That means he still have excess of 2. He had 12. So he still had excess of 2. Because he is the owner, he is the originator. He won't say because they were all Christian now, he will now give everything. No, he's going to give only three that will meet for the need of the people. So what God expects us to meet in people is the basic needs. And as long as we have more than basic need, we should give the access to those who don't have basic needs. That's what they did in the New Testament. They didn't go praying. They didn't go doing program that we're doing today. That's to say, all these our pastors that have money in their account, and people are languishing in poverty, and people cannot afford medical bills, and they have the effort to be beating their chest and say they are the richest people. They are wicked. They don't understand the Bible. On no account you have millions lying down in your account, and your church members will not have money. Now, do you know why pastors will not reach those days? Like I said, the first point of call is the pastor. Now, if a man comes to you and say he has a need, the first thing God expects you to do is that you see whether you can meet the need. It's only when you cannot meet the need now that you go and tell people that somebody needs something. So the pastor kept giving from their money as long as they have something they can give. Now, this sharing only came up when the pastor could not afford to be giving people from, they don't have it again. So on no account should we have pastors who have followers who cannot send their children to school, who cannot pay their medical bills, who cannot eat 3 square meal, and you be having money in your account. It's not Bible. These are the reasons why Paul and co were not rich. And somebody was teaching that it was because they didn't learn prosperity. You see that in this teaching, Paul and all the apostles who were mightier than we are now never told the people that there's a way of prosperity. No, it's a way of equality. It's not a way of prosperity. It is from equality now that prosperity will come. God will now be magnanimous to us because we are doing the right thing and bless us. I know there's a man of God that they always say maybe he's the richest, and he used to beat his chest that yes, maybe he's the richest man, the richest man of God. And I'm sure there are people in that church who cannot send their children to school. And you don't understand the Bible, you're beating your chest. You call it faith. You call it God has made you rich. And there are people suffering in your church. You're not preaching Bible. That's not biblical. This is the Bible. You don't teach faith to people who are hungry. You give them food first before you start talking about faith. You don't even teach God to people who are hungry. You give them food first before you start telling them God. That's what James taught us. That's how to do ministry. That's what they did in Old Testament. They didn't go preaching. They didn't go telling people some of the things we do today. Now, you see that even Jesus taught the same thing. Jesus taught the same thing. Let's see that in Matthew 19, 23 to 29. It was what Jesus taught them that they were doing. Let's see that in Matthew 19, 23 to 29. It says, then said Jesus unto the disciples, verily I say unto you, that a rich man shall hardly enter into the kingdom of heaven. What Jesus is saying here is that rich people will not enter. It will be difficult. It's not saying they will not enter. It will be difficult. Why? They trust the money. They will not want to give their money out. You'll be surprised that on the last day, some of the men that are highly celebrated in a generation will hardly make heaven. Why? Because their case is like the case that this verse is saying. They refuse to give to people who lack, and they claim that God is blessing them. While people are languishing in poverty and they cannot afford 3 square meal, they can't send their children to school. And some of them painfully, these Americans, these Europeans came and built church. That's the kind of church, they built hospitals, they built schools for us. That's the school they went to. But they don't turn out to build. They're stacking up the money in their bank accounts. They're building big houses and driving big cars when people are suffering. They're flying many jets. I'm not against driving car. I'm not against flying jet. But like I said, not when people are lacking, not when people are suffering. And even if you need a jet, let's say it's important because of the schedule of your church, then do you need 2 jets? No. Do you even need 2 cars if your people are suffering? If you say car is a necessity, then you don't need 2 cars. You need 1 car for now as a necessity. If people are suffering, let the second car money be used to take care of the people that are suffering around in your church. It's unto you that a rich man shall hardly enter into the kingdom of heaven. Why? Because they don't want to let their money go. And again, I say unto you, it is easier for the camel to go through the eyes of the than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven. When the disciples heard this, they were exceedingly amazed, saying, who can then be saved? But Jesus heard them and said unto them, with men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. Then answered Peter and said unto them, behold, we are forsaken all and follow me. What shall we have therefore? I think I need to digress and explain this place. Look, I don't want to talk about it. I need to talk about it. We did it in part 8, but it's possible you didn't listen to part 8. Now, Peter was an Israelite who had been taught that God wanted to make them great. Like I said, in the days of Israelite, the thing that God wanted to do with them is to make them great and make their nation great. Unlike us now, it's particularly about basic needs. Anything beyond basic needs, you're on your own. It's for you to work out that. Now, when Jesus now told them that the rich people will not make heaven, it will be difficult to make heaven because they will trust in their money. Peter now felt, well, been following you. I left my fishing business prospered. I left it to come and follow you. You're now saying I will not be rich. Is that what you're saying? That's the same way today. Many Christians are thinking we are coming to God to become rich. That's the thinking. That's the mindset. And that's even what your pastor is teaching you. That God, you have come to God to become rich. Hear what? Go and read that place or say, read it and see what I'm saying. Let's read 27 again. Then answer Peter and said unto him, based on when God said that it's difficult for rich people to enter heaven, Peter now answer, behold, we are forsaking all and follow you. What shall we have therefore? That is, if you say we are not going to read, then what's again? That's what Peter was saying. Let's see how Jesus answered them. And Jesus said unto them, verily, verily, I say unto you, they that ye which have followed me in the regeneration which when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory, ye also shall sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. You see that the first thing that God said that was so important that he told them was, you're going to make heaven. That's what is important. See, he was asking about riches, and Jesus was answering about heaven. He said, you're going to sit in heaven. You're going to get a good place in heaven. You're going to be on a throne and judging people for me in heaven. So why he was thinking of how to become rich on earth, God was discussing heaven. So our paramount, our focus should be on heaven, not on what we can get on earth. Let's go further. And everyone that has forsaken houses and brethren and sisters, not all these things that say they are forsaken, say houses, brethren, sisters, father or mother or wife or children or land, for my name's sake, shall receive 100-fold and shall inherit everlasting life. He said, if you have left anything at all, is it father, is it mother, is it cousin, is it houses, he said, you get 100-fold. Now, I know the church has taught this to men that God will supply. If you give God anything, give you 100. That's not true. How do you know whether your interpretation of a scripture is true or not? Pick one after the other. I said, if you have left houses, that one, no problem. If you have left brethren, that is, you have left your brother. Can God multiply brother for you? I will tell you, I can multiply brother. He said you are less sister. Can God multiply physically sister for you? There's no magic like that. But I'll tell you what God meant by sister. He said father. Can God multiply father for you? You have only one father. But he said you get 100-fold of father. You get 100-fold of sister. Even say you get 100-fold of wife. The same God who told us that you must have only one wife is the one telling us we get 100-fold. So is he saying you're going to have another wife? What is the meaning of that? That's what I want to explain to you. Now, like I said, whatever you have in this kingdom that will belong and does not belong to you, it belongs to the kingdom. It was just given to you in trust to hold for God on behalf of the people of God. So that thing that you have belongs to God. That's to say that if, let's assume in a church setting, there are people like 20 who are in the place of fathers, 20 people who are in father level status in that church. Now, every child in that church, we have access to those 20 fathers as if they were his real father. They will behave to him the way their father will behave to them. They will treat him the way they will treat their own children. They will treat him, they will give him, if he has need, they will meet his need as if it's their own son that is located for need from them. So also sister, you lost a sister, everybody in church who knew you lost a sister will take the place of a sister for you is a sister. Everybody, if you lost your wife, everybody who is in the church, who have that status of wife will behave to you like a wife. Of course, not wife of sleeping with you, but at least wife of meeting your needs, helping you where they can help you. For instance, I'm in America and my wife is not here. My family is not here. There's a woman in my church that is always cooking and bringing food for me. The only thing I do is that when she drives to where I am, she will come out, give me the food, and she'll drive out. She has never entered my house. That's the only law. But at least the food she will bring, I will eat. Every time she keeps bringing food for me. In fact, most times she will tell me to come and collect food. I'll say no. She's married. But she has never, not ever will enter my house. But she's behaving like a wife to me by meeting my needs. So it a husband, the same thing. Let's assume a woman lost the husband. You who are men in that church, who are in the position of father too. Because Jesus is expecting that this is a clean church where there is no sin, where people are not thinking of ulterior things. When your motive is pure, they'll be behaving like husband to those people. So if it is house too, somebody has one car and you need a car, that car, as many cars that are in that church, you have access to them because everything in that church belongs to everybody. That's what that passage is saying. It's not saying that it's going to be multiplying your money. It's that you are going to have access to every resource that is in that church that God has provided. If you see John 19, verse 26 and 27, you see that played out. When Jesus told John, he said, behold your mother, talking to Modi. He said to Mary too, behold your son. Jesus was going to die and leave the world, and somebody needed to take the mother in. So somebody who was in position of son in that church, which was John, took her in. That was the Bible. Recently, I lost a friend, a very dear friend, and God spoke to me. He said, I must take over, even though the family is in Nigeria, I must take over that family as if it's my family. I may not have that financial muscle to give them money, but at least I can be asking after them, I can be praying with them, I can be teaching their children and doing one or two things for them. That is the kind of church that God left for us, where we are our brother's keepers. When everything one person has belongs to everybody. Nobody is saying this thing belongs to me. You can have access to everything that every other person has in the church. Now, when I first gave my life to Christ, I was in the military then, and there was this friend of mine that was staying opposite my house. Now, his family was not staying with him. My family was with me. That time when I first gave my life to Christ, and so many things, bring your money, collect everything for me, a lot of issues. So I didn't have a car again. This, my friend, gave me the spare key to his car. Very nice friend. In fact, he's the one that I said is dead now, and God said I should take over the family. Now, this, my friend, he wasn't particularly born again. He was just a kind-hearted person. He gave me the spare key. Anytime I wanted to go out, I would go to him and say, so person, please, I want to go. He said, no, why am I asking? That once I saw the car parked there, all I needed to do was to just enter inside and drive off. That's what he told me. That I did not need to ask him that I wanted to take the car. That's why he gave me the car key. That once I saw the car parked, it means it can be used. That I should not see it as his own, I should see it as our own. That's the kind of church God left for us. And those are the things we are not practicing today. That's why people are suffering in Africa. There are enough resources in people's hand that God has made available for everybody to have at least the basics. Now that's the story that God was trying to teach with the Good Samaritan. And the people didn't understand, and they put man first. Now let's see another place where God demonstrated that again, because we have to drive this point home. Acts chapter 11, verse 28 to 30. Acts 11, 28 to 30. And there stood up one of them named Agabus, and signified by the Spirit that there should be great death throughout all the world, which came to pass in the days of Claudius Caesar. Then the disciple, every man according to his ability, determined to send relief unto the brethren which dwell in Judea, which also they did, and sent it to the elders by the hands of Barnabas and Saul. Note that the people were gathered in Judea, that Jerusalem, that is in Israel, and a prophet came up and said there was going to be famine in the land. Immediately he said that, they said, oh, what do we do? Let us make sure that other people gather money. I'll come and give these people who will be having need. Let's see how it played out in both of 1 Corinthians chapter 16. He said, now concerning the collection for the saint, as I have given order to the churches of Galatia, even so do ye. He said, collection for the saint. That place is talking about the famine that was happening in Judea. They were going to be sending needs gathered from people to meet the need of people who were going to be in problem in Jerusalem. Upon the first day of the week, let every one of you lay by him in store, and as God has prospered him, that there be no gathering when I come. I heard the man of God uses it to teach that every Sunday we should be giving money. No, they were gathering money for a particular purpose, not offering money. It's money for a purpose of meeting people's need in Judea. And when I come, whosoever you shall approve by your letter, then will I send to bring your liberality to Jerusalem. You have seen that. They're taking it to Jerusalem. This gathering, we are gathering from people of Asia and taking to Jerusalem. You know, we don't do all of that again. We don't do, and don't forget that where they're taking it to was not Paul's church. It was not that church that they're taking it to, was not established by Paul. There was unity then. There was no denomination. They were one. Paul was going to gather from the churches he has established and taken to people who were not his church. And if it be meet that I go also, they shall go with me. You see that there was going to be a problem in one part of the world. Then the other part that was not having problem was gathering to meet the need of those parts. They were not thinking of miracle. They were not going to be teaching people how to make money. That's not the Bible. They were not going to be doing prosperity teaching. No, they're going to be collecting from those who need, who have, to those who need. That is Christianity, equality that we read at the beginning. From those who need, who have access to those who need. Why? Because every resource that's available in the kingdom is for everyone. There must be equality. That's what we should be doing in Africa. And if we are doing that, I can assure you nobody in the church will not be able to eat. Nobody in the church will not be able to send his children to school. Nobody in the church will not be able to at least have a place to put their head. Nobody in the church would lack medical issues. No. It's not going to be possible because we have people who God has raised who are very rich. Now, another way that God does this, apart from sharing from people who already have, is to raise kingdom financiers and kingdom defenders. We taught that in our last teaching, but let me just quickly touch on it. Now, God will raise people specifically for this purpose. He will make them rich for that purpose. Like I've said in teachings past, that God is going to be raising special people in this generation for purpose of financing his church, that meeting the needs of his people. We see that played out in the story of Joseph, when God sent him ahead to Genesis 45, 4-7. I read. He said, and Joseph said unto his brethren, come near to me, I pray you. And they came near, and he said, I am Joseph your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. Now therefore be not grieved, not that, not angry with yourself, that ye sold me hither. For God did send me before you to preserve life. He didn't say, my brother sent me. He didn't say, wickedness sent me. He said, God was the one that orchestrated those his brother to do that. Don't forget the Bible said, he has raised the wicked people for the day of evil. That's to say, when God wants to do something that is not supposed to be correct, he will look for people who have bad heart. He will instigate them to do that thing. So what God did was to instigate his brothers to do that, because that's what God wanted. He said, God has sent me. He didn't say man sent. God. The Bible doesn't make mistake. God was the one that actually orchestrated the selling of Joseph to slavery. Verse 6. For those 2 years had the famine been in the land, and yet there are 5 years, in which there shall neither be an hearing or harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve you a posterity in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. You see that? One of the reasons, because there was going to be famine, and God wanted to take care of his people, he raised Joseph for that purpose. So sometimes God will raise specific people to meet the need of people. God is going to be putting money in people's hands in millions of dollars, in billions of dollars. Why? Because a church must not suffer. Because people must not be in the church and they can't send their children to school. And we say God is good. People shouldn't be in the church. Well, the reason why people are abusing Christianity, we keep the money that is meant for those people. We put it in our banks. We use it to buy cars. We use it to build houses while people are suffering. We use it to buy jets while people are suffering around us. And we start teaching them that they should go and be having faith. Now let's see another one that is so important to me. Daniel chapter 2. We're going to read 15-19. Daniel 2, 15-19. Then we jump to 48. He answered and said to Arioch, the king captain, which is decree, why is the decree so hasty from the king? Then Arioch made the king known to Daniel. Then Daniel went in and desired
of the king, that he will give him time, and that he will show the king the interpretation. Then Daniel went to his house and made the thing known to Anian, Meshach, and Azariah, his companion. Note that verse 17. Now, the story here is that the king said that he had a dream. He wanted interpretation. And they said if there was no interpretation, people were going to be killed, the wise men. And Daniel said, oh, don't worry, we're going to get the interpretation. What this thing he did, he went to his brother, the one we call Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He went to them. That's what verse 17 is saying. That they would desire mercies of the God of heaven concerning this secret, and Daniel and his fellow should not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Then was the secret revealed unto Daniel in the night vision, and Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Now, 4 people fasted. That's Daniel, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego. They all fasted. But when God was going to give the revelation, it was to Daniel. He didn't give it to 3. He didn't need to give it to the other 3. After all, they needed interpretation. He had given one person. So the one person went and told the king. When he told the king, let's see what happened. Verse 48. Great gifts and made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon and the chief of the governor over the wise men of Babylon. He lifted Daniel up. But let's see what he did after he lifted him. Then Daniel requested of the king, and he set Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon. But Daniel sat in the gate of the king. You seen that? The first thing Daniel did after he was raised, was to talk to the king on behalf of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, his brethren. So when God lifts you to a place of authority, place of influence, he expects you to bring other people along in the kingdom. In fact, the reason he's raising you is because of those people, no other reason. And I remember I was praying about it, and God was letting me understand that if Daniel had not done anything about it, he, as God, won't do anything. He has given that to Daniel to do. So you can imagine why our people are wallowing in poverty, because what has been given to you to do, you have not done it. You have not raised them up. You have gotten to that place and your thought life is about you. You are sat down there and enjoying alone, and people are suffering around you. Christians are suffering. Now, this kingdom people that I'm talking about now, like Daniel now, if there is in our generation today, one of the things we do is to make sure that communities have schools, they have hospitals, everything, everywhere it is. It will influence making sure that the things people will need for their to live good life is made available. That's what we do. That's what God is expecting from us. Now, for those God has given money to do, they will use their money to establish schools, give free hospital. Build free hospitals for the people. They will use it to provide so many amenities for the people. That's why God is raising them. I was reading about the establishment of Yale University here in America. In those days, it was the people in that community that felt there was a need for a college. And people gathered their money together, a few people. One man spearheaded it and called a few people together, and they gathered their money and they funded that university. What was the purpose? For the church. That time, it was the church that established it. It was not because of their own children. It was for the church. So can you imagine today that our pastors are billing us money? They say because to run university is not cheap. How were the white people running it when they came to Africa? Was it cheap that time too? So how were they doing it that we can't do it now? What was the thing that they knew that we don't know? What they knew is that they were not selfish, they were not self-centered. Some of these, our pastors, by the money that they even have, can finance the universities. And again, we put some things above that are not supposed to be. We place them higher than taking care of the need of the people. Most of the money we use to run some of the program we run, we should convert it to meet the need of the people. If you can use some of these are big churches are spending billions on their program, and they do it yearly. Some they do even 2 times a year. Convert the money to sponsoring people in university, and you see that you will not have problem of sponsoring it. And they will tell you they give scholarship. How many people are you giving scholarship to? When the white people came to give us school, did they do scholarship or they give it free to everybody? Then these places we are reading now that they were distributed to everybody according to their need. Were they distributed to only a few people? Needs is for everybody. So you don't give scholarship to people. It's because if you claim the money is much, so you have faith to do program, but do not have faith to run university free. If truly you have faith, why is your university not free? Why are your schools not free? If you have faith. If you can faith all the things you are faithing, can't you faith provision of money too for schools? It's because we don't trust God. We don't believe God. Because the money that's supposed to be meant for that, we keep it. It's because we have not taught our people to bring their money to sponsor the university. We have not taught them. We have taught them to be selfish because we too are selfish as men of God. So they are taking after us. They are selfish like us and keeping their money that they should release to the people. Now, I even said that I was discussing with my wife one day. Somebody died in our church in Nigeria, a man. And I was saying that the wife should be taken care of every month. And she told me that people are lacking the church. I said, no, it's not about having enough. Anybody that can afford I'm talking about Nigeria now, so we use Naira in Nigeria. Anybody that can afford 20 Naira, 30 Naira, maybe you are eating 3 square meal because of somebody you want to give to with meat, remove the meat and the money for the meat, gather it. It's not until you gather plenty money. Don't forget the widow's mite. She just contributed what she had. So little, all of us will contribute, will give to that woman. It might not be enough to her, but she will know that we remember her and we are aware and we are conscious of the fact that she had lost her husband. Now, let me read something for you in the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 8. You see that it's not until you have before you give. The little you have, you must learn to sacrifice. That's Christianity. 2 Corinthians 8 from verse 1. Moreover, brethren, we do you to wit of the grace of God bestowed on the churches of Macedonia, how that in a great trial of affliction in the abundance of their joy and their deep poverty abounded unto the riches of their liberality. These people were poor. Let's see their reaction. For to their power I bear reckon, ye are beyond their power. They were willing of themselves, willing to do what? To give, even though they were in deep poverty. So why you are not giving is not because you are poor. It's because one, maybe you have not been taught, or you are stingy, or you are self-centered, you are selfish. Verse 4, praying us with much entreaty that we will receive the gift and take upon us the fellowship of the ministry of the saints. Even Paul didn't want to take the money from them. They were begging. That's the Christianity they led with us, where people are concerned for others. You are ready to go through pains for others. That's the kind of Christianity. So nobody should die in our midst. For instance, a man should die in our midst, and the wife he has left behind is suffering, and we cannot every month contribute and be giving something. It shouldn't even happen, except the family is rich. We must, no matter how small, everybody must bring something. That is the kind of church that Jesus left for us. Now, what is the benefit to the church when we do things this way that we're teaching now? One, there will be no jealousy and envy in the church. Then there will be no pride. How? For instance, I bought a car in the church, and the church has been taught that whatever anybody has belongs to everybody. Everybody will see that even though it's bro Joe that's bought a car, but all of us has bought a car. So why would there be jealousy? They are not seeing it as my own. They are seeing it as a church own. They are seeing it as their own. So, for instance, I built a house. Everybody in the church is saying that we have built a house. Oh. So why would they be jealous of me? There was no need for jealousy. So in the church of old, people were never jealous of one another. And there was no pride because they see themselves as one, as the same in Christ. Then, one thing that I've noticed that is so important, they found favor before all men. Acts chapter 2, verse 27. Let's read it. It's possible you have not noticed that in the Bible. Acts 2:47. If you read this Acts chapter 2 from the beginning, from around 42 or thereabout, you notice that they were talking about people were sharing their things. So it is the conclusive part of it I want to read because of time. He said, praising God and having favor with all the people, and the Lord added to the church daily such as should be saved. Let me start from verse 46. And they, continuing daily to one accord in the temple and breaking bread from house to house, did eat their meat with gladness and singleness of heart. They were doing things together. Now, what's the result? Praising God and having favor with all the people. They were having favor with the people. What does that mean? People like them. You agree with me that if the church has been provided for the need of the members, people will like them. They will find favor before people. The church of old found favor before people. I know you might tell me that they went through persecution. No, those were the people that were in leadership level, who business were not moving again, who were not be able to deceive the church, the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Or maybe the Roman Empire at that time, who felt that they want to use Israel to win the favor of the people. But the majority, the masses, they found favor before people. People like them. And I can assure you there is no evangelism that is greater than this. That's why you will hardly see in the Bible, even in the New Testament, where they say people were going from house to house to go and be evangelizing. They were doing things like crusade and being good to people. When you are good, people will come. Imagine your church now, genuinely. They are cooking for people every time. They say they were breaking bread together every day. People will start coming. You agree with me? Some people will come because of the food. In the course of coming for the food, they will meet Christ. They will be saved. They will become born again. So they will find favor before people like them. But in the church we have today, people hate us because they see the pastors are just taking the money of the people. People are languishing in abject poverty, so people are flying jet. People are languishing in abject poverty, some people are keeping 10 cars, 20 cars in their houses. That's why they hate the church today. But if the church is doing the right thing, we'll find favor and we are going to grow, because that's what that passage said. They grew mightily. Why? People loved them. People were wondering, what kind of people are these? What kind of love? Every man wants love. People are looking for love. So when we do that, they will come and more people will grow. It will do more than all this evangelism that some of them are crying about. You go and do evangelism and our character is upside down. We go and do evangelism and we're not doing the right thing. So that's why we just rotate people among ourselves. We're not really saving souls. That is how the church of old won the hearts of the people to themselves. Another thing that will happen if we practice it, there will be more blessings. Let's see Ecclesiastes chapter 8 verse 4. The thing is, there is power. And who may say unto him, what doest thou? Wherever the word of the king is, that is, wherever the word of the king is obeyed, there is power. Wherever the king sent his word to, is backed up with power. So anywhere Jesus or God has sent his word to, that word is backed with power. And what is the word here? We doing these things that I have said, there will be power. And what will that power do? It will bring more prosperity to the church. God will be touching his heart. I want to do more for us. He wants to multiply the number of millionaires is raising in our midst. He wants to multiply the number of defenders is raising in our midst. He wants to demonstrate in love through healing and doing so many things that ordinarily is not doing now. I hope you know there is no more power in our time. No, there's no power. Because if there's power, when last did we hear what happened in Acts chapter 3, where somebody who has not worked for 40 years walked? We know some people have issue with their leg. They get healing now. But who have you seen that's never walked all his life that walked in this generation? Where do we see that? It's very rare. Or somebody who doesn't even have eyes at all. He's old and has never seen since he was born. Like we see in the book of John chapter 9. Do we see that again? We don't see that again now. We don't see that again. We don't see what they call nitobe miracle. Why? The power of God is not with us. Don't be deceived by what you are seeing. Maybe because of what you are seeing, you are thinking that the power of God is with us. It's not with us. It's not with us. It's just the overflow that we're seeing. The one that is just dropping that we're seeing. When you see the power of God, you see that Africa will even change. The Africa has not changed with all the churches we have. It's to tell you there's no power. There's no way power of God will be there. I'll be living the kind of wicked life that I live in Africa. There's no power. So the power of God will be with us. Power to change the heart of men, to live for God. You see people living for God. You see people want to practice the things of God in truth and in spirit. But because the power of God is not with it, that's why the word they are teaching us is not even penetrating our heart. Because the man who is teaching it too is not doing the right thing. Then money too will come. Then upliftment will come. So many other things will come. That's what happened in Europe. You know that. When they practiced the right thing before they lost God, God prospered Europe. Then God enter into America, prosper America. God is going to enter Africa. But if you don't practice this thing we're teaching now, the thing will not last with us, it will not prosper us. But if you practice it, you see that America can become like Europe, it can become like America. God did it for them before they threw away God. And he can do it for us too. Then you have read in John chapter 15, verse 1 and 2. He said, my father is the husbandman. I am the vine. Every branch in me that is fruitful. He said, we'll purge it and make it more fruitful. So when you are fruitful, when you are doing the right thing, God will bring more blessing for you. Don't forget the man of the issue of talent. He said the one of 5, he said has gotten 5 more. Then the one who didn't do anything, collected the one who didn't do anything and give the one that had 5. He said to he who has more will be given. So when we do the right thing, more will be given. Now let's go to the next thing, which is how are men of God, why are men of God not teaching these things today? Let's quickly go into that so that we can conclude. 1, ignorance. You might think they know. They might be having followers. They might be mighty to you. They might be mighty on earth today. Many of them are not mighty when it comes. When God reveals to you who they are nobody when God reveals who they are. Why? Because they're not doing the right thing. And why some of them are not doing the right thing? They don't even know this thing we are teaching. You might think they know, they don't know. Because if they know, A man of God will not be beating his chest that is one of the richest, or if not the richest in the world. And in church, there are people who don't have access to medical facilities. There are people who cannot pay the bill they are asking for in their universities. And he says he's giving scholarship. How many people are getting the scholarship? How many? Was this scholarship the white people were giving to us when they came to Africa? So they don't know. If they know, they will hide their faces in shame. Let me give you another one. There was one man of God that I remember those days, didn't even know this much that I know now. And he said something, but in my mind, I said, this cannot be correct. He said, God can make rich, that when he came to God, was nobody, but now he has 12 cars. I won't forget that day. That's years back. I was just like 2 years old in the Lord. And I felt this should be wrong. That, how can you have 12 cars? Is it that people are not having needs in that church? That you should have 12 cars and give it as a testimony where people are suffering in your church? You're only rich when every basic need in your church has been met. I'm not saying that shouldn't be people who are rich in the church. That will be. But when we have met the basic needs of the people, like in America now, the European world, people can be rich because nobody actually lack anything. Even in Africa, who can be rich. I'm not saying you should carry your money and be giving other people, other churches, but at least those in your church meet their basic need first before you start gathering money. That's what we're saying. That's what Paul and Co did. So they don't know. If they know, they will not be saying boasting that they are richest. They will not be boasting of what they are boasting of when people are suffering around them. They will not be saying we are giving scholarship when so many are still paying school fees. They will not be doing secondary school. One of my men told me of one church, I won't mention the name, where a Nigerian will understand this, where they pay 3,000, when he says spending like 3 million naira in a year in a secondary school, church secondary school. What are they collecting that money for? You give scholarship to how many? Now, another reason why they do that is because they don't have faith. They might be teaching you faith and talking about faith. They don't have faith, though. If they have faith, why are they stacking money? Most times we stack money because we are afraid of tomorrow. We are thinking tomorrow God might not bring money. Now, the book of Matthew chapter 6, verse 34 says, he said, take no thought to tomorrow, for tomorrow will take care of himself. If truly we are developed to that level that you know God, why are you keeping money for tomorrow? I know a man of God in Nigeria. His name is Bro Bile. He doesn't have bank account. He's not a man of God too. And he has so many followers. So it's not because he doesn't have followers. He has a school, it's free. He had a place, build hospital for his people in Boko there. And it's free. Everything there is free. Up to secondary school free. How is he doing it? He has faith. He's not keeping money. You are keeping money because you are afraid that money might not come tomorrow. You are keeping money because you are afraid that what about your children? You are thinking you should keep it for your children. Why should you dash it to people? You don't have faith that God can take care of your children. So don't say you have faith. You might be teaching faith and you don't have faith. If you have faith, go and give all the money you have out. Like God told that man, that rich man, so go and give your money out. I can assure you, some of you who are teaching today, if God say give your money out, you do like that rich man. You will say no, it's the devil that is speaking. Why? You don't want to lose your money. You think you have worked for it. What God has given you for the church, you think you work for it. That's why you don't want to give it. Now, another thing is that there's selfishness. They think of themselves. They don't think of others. They think of their children that are yet unborn. They are stacking money for them. That's why people are suffering. You can't give them. You are giving them small, the name of small things. Because if they ask them and they say they are spending. If you are spending, what of the one in your account that people are suffering? Now, before I conclude, somebody might say, now, won't we have people that are rich in the church? Let me explain that to you. If you're a businessman, of course, God will expect your business to be running. So you expect that what you do is to keep certain percentage for that purpose. For instance, you're a businessman, God can tell you, or you can decide on your own that 10% of your profit, or 15% of your profit, or 20% of your profit, you use it to be taking care of people in the church. God is not angry with that. The remaining, you can be pumping it back to your business so the business can grow. So I'm not saying you run your business down because you want to meet the need of the people. That's for the business people. Now, for the people who are employers, as long as you know your money is going to come next month, you can give out all your money. Yes, that's not wrong. If truly you have faith, you are meeting you have money that's coming every month, you are sure that it's going to come every month, you're already working, you can give out the money for people who have need. Or if your faith can't carry, you can take certain percentage of your money, the one you are saving, and be giving it to the people. That is one other way you can do that too. I know of a man that God said is going to make very rich in this generation. And what he did with it, he said 50% or whatever
is going to be getting as profit, he should put it back into the society and to the people. So God can do that. So with that, the rich men who are doing business can still be rich because it's not everything they are giving out. They are still pumping some of the money back to their business. So there are still people who are rich in the church. Again, once you have met the basic need of the people, if you still have leftover, it's not binding on you to give out the leftover. The leftover still belong to you. So that's to say that you can still be rich even though you are giving out. Like some of these pastors can still be rich because they are very rich. If they still give out part of their money, they will still be rich. And even when it comes to pastor in particular, that's why if you go and read the book of 1 Corinthians, about Paul was talking about apostles, who they were, how they used to suffer. As long as people are suffering, a pastor should not keep money. That's the truth. At least when people are suffering is in church. If it's not in church, no problem. But if there are people in his church that still have needs, a pastor should not have money kept anywhere. But if the man of God is not a pastor, maybe he's an evangelist who doesn't have a church, maybe fine. He can devote certain percentage of his money to give to the work of God. Maybe the church is attending or to people around him and keeping the percentage for himself. But for the one who has a church and people are suffering under you, you shouldn't keep money in your account. How to believe that with that we have dealt with this topic? One thing that I must point out is that if you have read the book of Matthew chapter 25, God said on the last day, he said he's going to separate people into two groups. The one, he will say, when I was hungry, did you give me food? When I was naked, did you clothe me? When I was in prison, did you visit me? He said, we tell them, they will ask him, when did we do that to you? He say, when you did it to any of this, you have done it to me. I remember one time I was praying, and my understanding is that these are the people God is talking about. Some of the pastors are the men of God and people that God has raised to take care of people today, and they kept the money for themselves. That's what the Bible is talking about. On the last day, God is going to ask them. Why? Because some of those people God gave you that money for in the church, they have died of sickness. So is your carelessness, your selfishness, is you retaining what you not retain that made them to die? Some have died of depression. Some have even committed suicide, just because you didn't release the money God has given to you. So their blood is on you. When you kept money in your account and people are suffering, they are close to you. On the last day, you'll be judged. If you are the type that you hear God, like so many men of God do, you notice that one of the thing God keeps saying is that there will be surprises on the last day. Some of the people that I really esteem in our time, when they get to heaven, God will disappoint them. Why? Because they are not doing what is expected of them. God is going to ask us, the resources has committed to our hands, what did we do with it? Do we use it justly? Do we use it for the purpose for use given to us? And one of the reasons why we don't use it is because we want to keep it to ourselves. We are covetous. And the Bible says covetousness is idolatry. Covetousness is when you are asking for what you don't need or when you are keeping what you don't need. I think that's the next teaching we're going to do after this so that we can know the meaning of covetousness. On that note, I want to draw the curtain. It is my prayer that God will give you grace. I know some of these things takes grace for you to work for something to be given to people. But my prayer is that as you receive grace to do this, God will continue to prosper you in Jesus' name. And God will meet all your needs everywhere, whatever they need, whether financial or medical or mental or whatever. In the name of Jesus. Thank you and God bless you. Amen.